Hi, welcome to For Goodness Sakes by Mean Old Granny Anderson. That be me. Today we're going to talk about the question, when is a mistake really a mistake? When I woke up this morning, a quote was stuck in my mind. It was from Stephen Stovney's amazing new book, Soar Above. The purpose of Soar Above, as the title says, is to help you learn how to use the most profound part of your brain under any kind of stress. It's an amazing book, and I highly recommend it. The quote from his book that was stuck in my head was, "If you think of the big mistakes you've made in life, nearly every one involves violating a deeper value by acting on something that was not as important to you, at least in the long run." I asked myself, is that true? What are my biggest mistakes? In the night that I read that quote, I hadn't been able to think of any big mistakes. Oh, I knew there were some, maybe many. I just couldn't think of any. However, this morning, one big mistake did enter my mind. It was when I started and continued to run a bed and breakfast for 10 years in the old 1906 house where I grew up and where we had raised our children to be teenagers. We had bought the house from my mother when we moved back to my hometown, and my mother had it for sale. We'd spent 8 years remodeling and renovating the house. We stripped paint, put up wallpaper, revealing beautiful hardwood floors, which we had refinished. We put in new wiring and a new boiler and finished off the attic, etc., etc. It had been our hobby and, quite frankly, our obsession. So why did we decide to move out just when we had finished it and made it so functional and beautiful? Seems pretty stupid, doesn't it? As I examined the whys of my choices, going back and even looking at the history of what was going on back then, I realized it was complicated. On the surface, it all seemed simple. We'd bought land in the country. We wanted to live there. We had built a beautiful home out in the country. But why didn't we just sell the old house and move on? Why turn it into a bed and breakfast? I was in my mid-40s. Our children were now teenagers. I was in the prime career development stage. Why did I start a business I knew nothing about, knowing that the chances to be financially successful weren't good? Very unlikely. Okay, yes, I had dreams of creating a lovely place for families and other groups to come and build loving connections. I wanted to do retreats of all kinds. I could blame the decision on my youthful optimism, except I wasn't that young. Maybe it was my husband and I becoming overly attached to things like people and pets and houses. We kind of hang on to things. But these are all simplified explanations and only part of the truth. The best answer, I think, is, like most of life, it's easy to say what someone should do when we're looking at it from the outside or looking back on our life. But it's a whole other story when it's real life and you're right in the middle of it. Without giving too many details, here are just a few of the events that happened over that 5 to 10 year period. I was diagnosed with probable MS, which I've since learned after being in fear for about 10 years, that it was a misdiagnosis. My husband's job, though he was making good money throughout most of the time, and thank God he was because I wasn't, was full of stressful demands, difficult coworkers, and several major changes. Our children were growing up and leaving home, and we were all experiencing the joys and challenges of their new independence. Having teenagers isn't always easy. My beloved in-laws were having serious health challenges. And finally, I was trying to run the bed and breakfast, write a column, and work part-time in private practice counseling. Sounds a bit insane? Well, it was. But isn't life often like that? If you have a rich life full of work and home demands and joys, that is good. And it's also difficult. In analyzing what I thought was my biggest mistake, I realized most decisions in life can't be just classified as mistakes or successes. They are really a mixture of both. Most of life is shades of gray rather than all black bad or all white good. Even the parts that are darker gray with lots of black bad are still rich with challenges that, when faced and dealt with through hard work and caring, provide healthy opportunities for growth and positive life lessons. When we weigh our priorities, focusing on our deepest and highest values, we make the best decisions we know how to make given the current life situations. Whatever we choose, there will be good and bad about it. We need to try to emphasize and grow the good and deal with the bad as best we can. But there is no perfection, not within ourselves and not outside of us either. I did learn some valuable lessons running the bed and breakfast, like how difficult it is and how much work it takes to run a small business. I admire anyone that takes it on, whether you succeed at it or not. I'm also glad I had the opportunity to provide some great times in our beautiful old house for my customers who stayed at Aunt Apple's Inn, the name of my bed and breakfast. There were joyful weddings, fun murder mystery parties, and many family reunions there. I met some amazing people, including an artist whose paintings still hang in my house. I am lucky my husband was able to create financial successes that I really haven't successfully created. But I also know that I share in those financial successes and our family life successes. We are a team, each bringing our own strengths and weaknesses together to support each other. Like the song says, I've had regrets, but then again, too few to mention. I learned from my analysis of my big mistake to see life stresses as challenges to grow from and to focus most of all on loving and respectful treatment of others. I have also learned the importance of persistent hard work, including accepting responsibility for our own choices, good or bad. We're all going to make mistakes, but if we look for and develop the best in ourselves and others, when we do make mistakes, they simply become a part of the amazing lessons learned from leading a rich and rewarding life. That's all, for goodness sakes. See you next time.